and welcome to the easternKicks podcast, a regular magazine programme about East Asian film led by me, Andrew Heskins, founder and grandmaster of easternKicks.com, and James Mudge, our leading writer.
Hey up.
Each episode we'll be taking a look at the latest films, news and festivals, often chatting to filmmakers and stars along the way. Hello and welcome to our latest show. This time we're looking at the truly deranged horror, The Sadness. Later on we chat to the film's director, Rob Jabbaz. But before we get started, let's get to that important question. What are you drinking this episode, James?
I'm very classy, man. I've got a nice few cans of McEwen's Export, aka the Red Death, from Glasgow, just because, so called because of the can. And it's red and it looks deathly.
And it's got that funny chap on it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, some old laughing cavalier. It says he's Mr. McEwen. I'm going to cast doubt on that, but it's only 4.5%.
Who knows what Mr. McEwen does at the weekend?
He looks quite happy with himself, I'll say that. And yourself, man, that looks considerably stronger than mine.
Mine is back on the Ampleforth Abbey beer, which is my beer discovery of 2020, and still working it like I can. Yeah. It is their Jabbaz, which is 7%.
Okay, you've won this one.
And very nice. I know it's been on the show before. I mean, we could look to them for being our sponsors, but this probably wouldn't be the episode to do.
No, probably not. I mean, all things considered, probably it's not one that's massively people are going to associate themselves with in some ways.
Not for an actual proper abbey.
Actually, maybe McEwen's would be okay for that, or if we can get Buckfast on the show.
我一直以为，如果我不去烦别人，就不会有人注意我，也不会有人伤害我。直到今天我才知道，不是这样的。
病毒不会降低他们想象力，反而会让他们想出最可怕的行为。
And so on to The Sadness. A terrific, if nasty horror in a very old school category 3 style.
Yes.
It's released by streaming service Shudder from the 12th of May.
Nice.
So, I mean, should we give a little bit of an idea of the storyline and the context for this?
Why not? A very condensed one, because there isn't a gigantic amount of story to it, which I don't mean it in a bad way even, but it's set in Taiwan, backdrop of a pandemic. I think it's called the Alvin virus. I'm not sure if that's a subtitle thing or anything, but sweeping through, not causing too much trouble or anything, some sort of COVID type thing. But then it goes through some mad mutation and everything like that, and we'll talk about this a bit later, but it just seems to transform people into being consumed by some animalistic, very sort of basic degenerate madness and desires, and they all go around committing acts of extreme savagery, and everything falls into chaos. And then, as usual, that's good enough. But then we get a small human story kind of in the middle, where we get some dude, Jim, according to the titles again, and Kat spelled with a K, who are a couple who are kind of caught up in the carnage, but they're in different parts of the city, and they're just trying to find their way to each other across through the carnage and everything. And needless to say, it's not an easy journey. Things go wrong. She's being pursued by some perverted businessman who's a pervert already, and then the sadness makes him triple down on his madness and perversion and everything. He's still after her and everything, and that's pretty much it. It just unfolds against that backdrop, and it's essentially just a series of really quite impressive splatter set pieces against.
So I mean, this has travelled to various sort of fantasy genre festivals around the world. A lot of good press, including by us ourselves on easternKicks.
Yes, that's true.
And I guess, I mean, for us it's quite unusual because we don't necessarily see this kind of gore from Taiwanese films.
No,
I mean,
absolutely.
It's quite unusual to have something that's quite this extreme. And yes, readers, listeners, I should say, yes, listeners, this is extreme.
It is extreme. I mean, I believe it had a trigger warning at Fantasia and somewhere else as well for people because of the nature of some of the violence. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, you're saying even before, Taiwan does produce a lot of horror, but it is generally stuff which has curse, bridge, rope, tag along everything in the title. So there's a lot of it, but it's pretty rare to see gore horror coming from Taiwan, and especially this kind of proper gore horror, which we're not really seeing from too many places in Asia anyway.
It's quite interesting, but that does proportionally for the amount of films that they put out, there is an increasing amount that are horror films at the very least.
Yeah, that's true.
And it does feel like some of them are kind of moving up a notch. I mean, I'm going to think of an example I've seen recently, Incantation.
I'd like to see that.
Which is found footage style, which I feel massively to you. But that is actually reasonably, it's not on this kind of level, but it is actually reasonably gory, and it is relentless in the way that it kind of grabs the whole. So I think, maybe we are going to see a lot more of this, and in some ways, if you're going to be a little bit candid about this, it feels like the horror sells. There are possibly, that's one of the reasons we're going to see more of this, so that these films get out into the wide world. I'm sure some of the ones we're seeing are going to get sold to Shudder or Netflix or whoever is going to pick them up.
No, I hope so, and I think as well it's partly. I mean, without diverging too much into this, but like Taiwan is putting so much effort into attracting co-production and international co-production now under its whole Taika. I can't pronounce it, I should call it Taika scheme, but it makes it a very attractive place to make, or these low budget ones. And you have quite a lot of really great people in the industry working in this area, which is why. Two production projects I'm working on at the moment are I would say nastier than The Sadness personally, but they're going to be there, everything like that. So, yeah, absolutely. I think as well, whether it's films which are shot in Taiwan or which are like actually Taiwanese films. We were getting back to some of this stuff when Hong Kong was shooting a lot of stuff in the 70s and 80s in Taiwan and stuff. So it's got a good history of being a place to shoot these kind of films. Everything, got a huge variety of locations and everything. And I'll just stop there and say, because I'm just becoming an advert for shooting in Taiwan. but no, you're right. We are seeing more of these horror films proportionally. And we've had some gore ones, just not too many so far. And we've had the films of old Zhou Qian. He's done some more stuff in the mainland, although he did Abyssal Spider in Taiwan a year or two ago, which I haven't seen yet. It's not a gore film. It looks. What was that one was played at East Wind's Bugs or something like that, which was absolutely, a fire alarm went off in the middle of it, which was good. But no, he did great films like Zombie 108, aka Call of the Undead. No idea why. Zombie Fight Club, which was more of a Hong Kong production by him. They did some stuff in the mainland as well. But the Sadness does stand out from anything we've seen before from Taiwan. And you're right, maybe we will see more of this stuff in the future, which would be very, very welcome. And having people like Shudder, Netflix, whatever, pick stuff up and release it, and suddenly gives you a new model for releasing stuff, because these kind of things are not necessarily going to get released widely in the cinemas. The day of DVD and stuff is fairly over-ish and everything. So it's great that there is, with these online platforms, maybe we will see more, because there's a way to make some money off them.
So let's dive into the interview we had earlier with Rob. Thank you so much for being on the call, Rob.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just say briefly, we are, fans of the film and everything, so it's very cool to have a chance to talk to you about it briefly and everything, man. So yeah, just to fire straight into the question, so obviously, like, zombie films, continue to be really, really popular everywhere. But there's quite a range in different types. From the States, we have the zombie comedies like Zombieland, everything like that. From Korea, big hits like Train to Busan, which is mainly a lot of crying and everything. But where does the Sadness kind of fit into this sort of ongoing massive trend of like zombie content?
I guess just like trying to find a way to make it scary again and make it urgent again, by adding an element of sadism and sexual violence to the whole thing. In the hope of that sort of shocking people, and then as far as like the gore and sort of the spectacle of the whole thing, I think that to be honest, like I think that is that energy is maybe something that I'm not sure I've seen that. I mean, I guess one could argue that something like Zombieland or that fucking what's it called, Army of the Dead. Maybe those are, you know, action packed, or, you know, the Resident Evil movies. I don't know, but I mean, I guess okay. So as in terms of just like the gore, well, I don't know. Listen, guys, I don't know. I'm just trying to make a movie here. I'm just trying to fucking bust some heads and trying to you know, create something over here that maybe people haven't seen before. I didn't have a big budget, so I thought that the best thing to do would be to just make it vulgar and kind of you know, repulsive. And I guess just that repulsion is really what I find interesting.
I mean, in terms of that going in that direction, was your inspiration the old school Hong Kong Category 3 movies and all that kind of Daughter of Darkness and all those fantastic movies, Eternal?
Like in spirit, yes. Like I've always found that those films, like I love those films, like Herman Yao and Billy Tang are you know, really really just prolific and super underrated directors. In a technical sense, like their films are just really snappy and energetic. And in the case of like Billy Tang and Red to Kill, for example, like the lighting and the atmosphere and just like all that, just the feeling of that film is insane, completely insane. But anyways, it's not so much like the subject matter or like the violence or the going over the top. Actually, the going over the top, yes, because what I like about those films is like the freedom and sort of the like no filter, like let's just like you're sitting in the theater watching those films. I saw the Ebola syndrome in the theater at Fantasia in Toronto in like, I think, like, can't remember, it might have been like 2009 or 2007 or 2008 or 9 or something, but like I was like, oh, the Ebola syndrome, it sounds cool, Ebola. And then I'm sitting in the theater and I actually felt like in danger in the movie theater. Like I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I can watch this, and I had never felt like that before. Like a movie could actually hurt me, but the thing is that there is sort of this like lowbrow humor that is pervasive in all those films, like sort of like almost like Three Stooges kind of style comedy, in the sort of the downtime between the scenes of just utter horror and depravity. But I always thought it'd be really cool if you could make a movie that had that spirit, but you kind of stripped away the comedy and tried to make it like more serious. And that's maybe, in terms of thinking of it from the perspective of like a Category 3 era film, maybe that's my answer. I like elements of those films, but the comedy, although for me it works. It works absolutely in favor of those films. I wouldn't change a thing. But for me, like the film that I wanted to make, I wanted it to be like a lot less humorous, and so that's kind of what I tried to do with The Sadness, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess one of the other differences with the Category 3 films, I mean, talking about like the sort of level of like sexual violence in the film, I think in some of those Category 3 films, there's kind of a uncomfortable line of like some of the stuff being played for exploitation, titillation, whereas watching The Sadness, I thought it was a lot more nihilistic or dark in that respect. It didn't feel like any of those scenes were being played for those same kind of kicks that they are. That kind of plays into the like. Here's the thing: is like when you introduce sort of like this really, kind of, like I said before, I guess for lack of a better word, like lowbrow comedy, and you put it in this context with graphic rape scenes and stuff. It's like it puts the audience in a funny position, because it's kind of like, oh, okay, so this is funny. Like we're laughing at this. Is that what we're doing? Like, and it actually makes the movie, in my opinion, it actually makes them. If you ask those guys, I think I found an interview like with one of those guys at some point, and
I think this is sort of the paraphrased quote, is that comedy is in there to kind of dull the blow of a lot of that stuff. But in fact, it actually makes it worse, because it kind of puts you in a position where you're kind of like, like, oh damn, we're supposed to kind of be flippant about this and not take it seriously. But like, it's still horrific. But if the tune is like, oh yeah, we're not taking this seriously, I find that to be more disturbing. So I guess in a sense, the sadness is, I guess I'm trying to be take it a little more seriously, and maybe try to be more like, I don't know, like maybe it's just a product of its time. Like you kind of can't do a lot of that stuff anymore, just due to sort of the backlash that you're receiving. And I mean, it's not like I'm afraid of what people will say on Twitter. It's a matter of just like, no one's going to fucking buy the movie. Like no one's going to show the movie at the festival. People will just not. You can make the most awesome movie in the world. You can make the movie that people think is like the most brutal movie ever. But like the fact is that like, if you really go super far with it, no one's ever going to see it, and the only way to show it is just going to be like selling Blu-rays out of your own website or whatever. I'm not doing this for my health. I'm doing this because I want to have a career. So like a lot of this stuff I have to be a little more like tactful with, and I can't just kind of go all out, because that's just the way things are.
I mean, in general, the film does have this kind of like sense of nihilism to it and everything. And I think part of it as well, maybe due to these kind of COVID times and it having like this sort of, this sort of virus plot involved in it and everything. But are they really, I mean, I don't know how to say this, but are they actually zombies, or is this just infection, or they're not zombies in the Romero sense, but it seems to be more the people who are disconnected or disenfranchised and just like really nasty bastards, rather than zombies in that kind of traditional sense and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you guys saw the film, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like it just changes their brain so that now the violence center is linked with the sexual drive, right? So that's what they are. As far as like are they zombies? Like no, like not really. Like in this Romero sense, absolutely not, because they're not dead. And sort of in the broader sense, like the sort of the 28 Days Later sense, which I do believe should be called zombies, because what you are defining as a zombie at that point is just sort of the colloquial zombie, like the mindlessness, right? Mm-hmm. Like so, like in the sadness, there's definitely a mind, and there's definitely like intention, but it's not like sort of this unthinking kind of just lizard brain driving everything. There's actually like some thinking going on. So they're not zombies. I've never really called the film a zombie film until people started telling me it was a zombie film. And like Rumor magazine early on called it the most I forget the quote. It's like the most brutal or zombie film or whatever of all time. Brutal and depraved zombie film of all time. And then Regan Banner, who's our distributor, was like, should we use this quote for the poster? And I said, yeah, I guess so. Like, I mean, I know how lazy buyers are. I know how lazy like just sort of general audiences are. So we'll just say zombie film, and then they'll say, oh wow, let's go watch that. And then after, when they're done watching the film, they can have the argument of like, that's not a zombie, or whatever. They can talk about it with their friends afterwards and have their nerd argument about zombies or whatever, not zombies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, can we talk about the practical effects there? So, which are very, very impressive in the film, and you're a CGI artist yourself. So, did you consciously decide to go with the very kind of old school practical side of things rather than relying on CGI?
Yeah, no. The thing about gore is that I am a staunch believer that gore, like, it doesn't necessarily need to be done all practically, but you're definitely the more that you can do on set, and the more like sort of mess that you can make on the set, the more like painful and revolting it will look like ultimately. And that is important because I mean, that's the point. You have to think like what's the point of gore if you really strip it down, like in a film. And I thought a lot about it, like, because it comes down to like, why do we like it? Why are so many of us interested in this stuff? And I think it has a lot to do with making a mess. I think it has a lot to do with like, there's certain kinds of like porn, for example, where like, some guy will, or some woman will like just smash like a, coconut cream pie all over her tits, and that's the porn, or like, spaghetti sauce or whatever, like it's this, or bukkake, or just like a mess, just like a big disgusting mess. And that's for the people who are interested in that kind of porn. Something's firing in their brain. Like they have some kind of anomaly in their brain that makes them appreciate that sort of spectacle. And I think that that's just sort of like an extrapolation upon sort of what most normal people have. Like, for example, us guys here, we like gore movies, and I think the same. Whatever collection of neurons within the brain are being activated when we see that sort of thing. Like there's a titillation that happens, but if we know that it's digital, because you always know, you can always tell when that blood is fake, right? When it's a fluid simulation. So if it's real and we know it, then that itch is scratched. It's like taking a drag of a cigarette. If you take a drag of a clove cigarette, you're like, what the fuck is this? You take a drag of a real nicotine cigarette, and you get that fix. Something. I think it's psychological. I would bet my life that it has something to do with like some kind of deep psychological aspect. So
that's the old school kind of Tom Savini, Ricky Baker kind of kick that you get. That's.
Yeah, it's a million times removed from seeing something which is just like you say, man. Anytime it's CGI, even if it's like hyper spectacular, you don't get the same kind of, kicking the balls with it or anything like that.
I mean, it's. I don't. I've seen, like, for example, you're okay. You guys got other questions. I don't want to dwell too much on this, but and I agree. Yeah, I think that those guys like Rick Baker, Tom Savini. All those awesome, Todd Masters, all the guys who are special effects guys, Chris Walas, they stumbled upon this thing, like this making a mess thing, and and then now when we get into sort of computer to CG gore, we realize that we stumbled something, that the thing that was stumbled upon is now kind of, we're veering off that course, and now we realize that what we had the whole time. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here. Let's go to the question.
No, for sure. I mean, this is why I'm looking forward to seeing this new Cronenberg film so much. Just because we've seen his old school body horror stuff where he was doing it without the CG stuff, so now this is like a return to body horror from the trailer. But if it's all CG, I don't know if it's going to be CG. In which case, I'm just interested to see if that has an impact in the same way some of Videodrome.
It's really strange. It actually is strange to see him returning to that, because the last thing he did like that, like Existence, maybe.
Existence,
yeah.
And it just seems so strange that he's returning, because this is the guy who did A Dangerous Method, and now he's going back. Now he's going back to the sort of the special effects and the latex monsters I'm very curious to see the film.
Yes,
but it seems to me like I never thought I'd see the day that he would go back to that stuff. Not to say that I don't like that stuff, but it's just like, I just thought that he'd kind of moved on to sort of more mature filmmaking,
For sure. It's still roughly in the same arena and stuff. Like with a film like this, with this much gore and sort of darkness in it and everything. I mean, what was it like trying to, getting it made in Taiwan? The horror genre in Taiwan is much more, the tag along, the bridge curse, the rope curse. Lots of ghosts and everything. So whereas this is, there's been a few Taiwan for like Zombie 108 and things like that, but not too many. nothing really quite like the sadness.
Yeah. The sadness is, worth watching.
But was it difficult, like getting funding out there and like making it there? Everything was there, or did you, when you were pitching it around, did you get any kickback just because of the nature of the film compared to like other Taiwan genre films?
No, you have it all wrong. I didn't pitch it around at all. I was commissioned to write the film.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, really interesting. Oh, who, by one of the studios there, or if it's okay to talk about it?
Just a guy. I mean, we're running out of time. We only got about a minute left, or a minute or two left. But I'll just wait for Susanna to kick me out. But yeah, basically what happened was like COVID happened, and I just happened to know a guy who wanted to make a movie, and he just thought, oh, okay, COVID's happening. Taiwan is dealing with it really well, and we have an opportunity here to make a film. So, Rob, do you want to write a script? And I said, sure. I'll write a script. And then he kind of gave me an outline of what he kind of wanted to do, and I sort of took it to, I took the idea and took it to where I needed it to be, adding all the sexual violence and stuff, and like just making it kind of extreme because I wanted to stand out. What he was asking for was a little more, like a little more common or just sort of something that we'd seen before. And then so he took the script. He said, oh, this looks great. I'm going to go see if I can find a director. He goes away, comes back in a couple of weeks, says, you can't find a director. Do you want to direct it? I say, yeah, sure. But I need to have final cut. And then and he says, yeah, okay, sure. And then that was basically how it went down. It's a pretty unlikely situation, but that's how it went down.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's interesting. Very cool. So it's last question, I guess. Just aside from anything which inspired the film, do you have any key horror film favorites yourself?
I really like Zawalowski's Possession from
Yes,
Great soundtrack as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. I watched that the other day, and I was like, Jesus is really good. I think that in a lot of ways it out Hellraiser's Hellraiser, but because I just thinking about how those two are so similar. But obviously it's not quite as straightforward, and I don't know. I just find myself revisiting it a lot. So yeah, that's the one that I really like. And if I had to make a recommendation to your listeners or whatever, I'd say find Possession 82 and give her a watch if you can find the Blu-ray.
Fantastic.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Thank you very much for your time, man. It was a great, very good chat, and it's great to see the film on Shudder and everything.
Yeah, man.
So it'll reach a much wider, much wider audience. Won't be like the old days of people hunting down.
For sure.
DVDs and stuff. So.
All right, guys. Talk to you later. Thanks a lot.
Hey,
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
So what I thought was really interesting about that interview actually is that Rob really reacted badly to it being called a zombie film, even though that's the headline way that it's being promoted by Shudder. Because they're not really zombies.
They're not. No, they're not. And this is obviously slightly spoilery and stuff, but you can see in parts that it's not only that compared to like. We referenced in for like 28 Days Later and stuff where they infected but more in common with zombies. I think this is even like another step away from that, because they're still being able to talk, they're still exhibiting human behavior, and it seems to be like I didn't get this into the interview, but it seems to be the sadness is something still that they are still like deeply trapped inside themselves somehow, like the sort of more normal part of them in there and stuff. Like you see them crying a bit and stuff. So and it's not explained, which is great as well. I think there's no need to dive into in the film the nature of it and stuff. But you're right. It's not a it's packaged as a zombie film because why not? But
I think because it's an easy sell really, rather than trying to get into all the detail of. Yeah, they kind of run around doing these depraved kind of things to other people, but
absolutely. I mean, and you would, although you would hate to see some like poor Train to Busan fans thinking, "Oh, great, another Asian zombie," and jumping into the sadness, expecting lots of tears and nice shots of people being kind to each other in the space of a zombie apocalypse, compared to some of the less than kind things that happen here.
Yeah. We don't have that 5, 10, 15 minutes of melodrama right at the very end, do we?
No, we certainly don't. And it has, in general, as we touched on with him, the whole thing has a much more of an air of nihilism. You know, it's quite a dark film in that respect. I mean, it is, whatever this is, you know, this virus is bringing out just the most horrible parts of people. And, you know, they're not so much zombies, it's just really nasty bastards. People going around doing absolutely horrible things to each other. And not just that, but actually seeming to really quite enjoy doing
Take real
it.
glee in it. That's
Absolutely,
yeah.
But also as we got into, you know, with him and stuff, it is, you know, it's been referenced in conjunction to Category 3, which is fair enough, but only in terms of the level of content. There's nothing massively exploitation in the sort of way of titillation in this as well. You'd be a pretty damaged person to actually start taking like real, you know, real, because it's you know, it's dark. Even just the way the plot unfolds is dark and it's quite hopeless and everything like that. And the splatter set pieces are spectacular, and the effects are fantastic and stuff. But there's nothing you're watching there. You know, loving seeing some of the tortures and the kind of the sexual parts of the violence happen and everything like that.
No,
it is very
it's
unpleasant.
not. Yeah. But it really does take pleasure in the sort of old school kind of prosthetics and all those kind of style of it, rather than relying on flat CGI and
no, for sure. I couldn't agree more. And that kind of flat CGI stuff is kind of, for me, what started. You know, we had the great sort of Sushi Typhoon wave and stuff post like Tokyo Gore Police, but everything kind of after a while went so much away from people like, you know, Nishimura's like effect and stuff. They started going so much into just the CGI and stuff.
Yeah,
fair enough. Low
budget kind of moving on really.
Yeah, Robogeisha was maybe one of the last ones. Robogeisha and Helldriver probably, and some of the ones after that, you were just getting into. I don't know. I mean, CGI gore is not a wonderful thing anyway.
No,
but
I mean we are. I mean, and we are definitely of the old school sort of guinea pig.
Well, that's true.
You know, there is. I mean, yes, these things might be extreme, but there is a kind of a weird joy in in the way that these, you know, the way that these movies work and the spectacle you get, and you know, as we were talking about in the interview, this kind of kick you get from seeing this versus that very artificial CGI.
Absolutely. And if this film was filled with just CGI gore and stuff like that, then it wouldn't have the impact it has, and it would. You'd be in a weird place where you're seeing horrific things, but you don't feel like any impact from them. Whether it's like a woohoo or a kick in the balls, you know, you need to get something from it, and I don't think CGI gore most of the time gives you something. But I mean, CGI is a great tool used properly, but realistically, when we're talking about horror films, most of them are operating on these mad low budgets, so they're just not doing proper CGI.
Yeah,
and stuff. So
and it's just and it's a fact that what you can do with a bit of sort of latex, rubber, or sausages, of course, from the Romero days,
or dog soldiers, sausages. You
know, versus.
Yeah,
versus
definitely.
CGI.
You can also,
you
can always figure stuff out. Like even when we were shooting something in Italy, we literally just went to some dodgy butcher and he gave us a whole thing of like entrails and eyes and things like that, and we dumped them on an unfortunate member of the cast. And it looks, I mean, it's absolutely, I mean, it looks as bad, well, not quite as bad as it smelled, but that, you know, it's maybe not always a healthy route, but it's. You're going to get a much better result than some of the CGI gore we see and stuff, and we still see in a lot of films. Even I think action films in some ways suffer even more from it than horror, when you're seeing like bullets which are to people and it just looks ridiculous sometimes. Yeah, you know. So, and with his background as a CG artist, it shows a real confidence. I don't know, or knowledge of it for him not to just be like, I'm a CGI artist. We can use my CGI skills to do all this stuff. He's obviously. You know, as we heard in the interview, very into and knowledgeable about, you know, what makes the horror film kind of tick, a splatter film tick especially, which is cool.
So The Sadness is available to stream exclusively on Shudder from the 12th of May.
Nice.
我找到你了。
So, James, do you have any easternKicks picks for us this time?
I've got a few, not many. I mean, we actually haven't done any easternKicks picks for a while because there's been absolutely.
It seems like there's been
nothing.
slim pickings for a few months since
Mighty slim.
since all the kind of Squid Games and
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
and I mean,
All of Us Are Dead is probably our last kind of big Netflix.
That's true.
series.
But I mean, even I admit that I'm not diving into like the rom-com K-drama side of it too much. Of which there's still a lot filtering through to Netflix.
Yeah,
which is fair enough. But there's no point in me talking about it because I'd just be randomly saying words.
Yes,
which I do it anyway. But anyway, so Shudder. Obviously, we've got the Sadness. That's it. There's been nothing on Asian on Shudder for a while. Amazon. I mean, as I repeat every time, Amazon with their search facilities and whatnot, but I did find our old friends Terracotta's Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell, which I'm pretty sure wasn't there before, or not on Amazon Prime. And it's a good one. It's a particularly wacky one. It was another
it's
one.
old school as well, isn't it? That's kind of
proper old school.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really
because it's quite it was done. I mean, it was released a while back now, but it was done fairly recently. But to look like the old school kind of VHS style,
and it did a pretty good job of the film and stuff. It's another one which got kind of tagged, but as being like a Japanese Evil Dead type stuff, like so many things like Evil Dead Trapped and stuff do. But it's pretty good, and it's not long either. It's kind of Pinku film length, as I recall. So that's, if you haven't seen it, that's on Amazon Prime.
For those who aren't Pinku fans, can you just tell us what Pinku length is?
Japanese films which are there is actually a number, and it's like 68 minutes or 69 minutes or something, which you shouldn't be over technically. And there are films which kind of like, they can either border on, they're kind of softcore, but they could get into more sort of racy things, or they could get into some of the ones which I've not enjoyed reviewing, which turn out to be sort of sex torture films and everything, or some horror films which kind of labelled into it. So it's
but as a definition of time, it's about it's about just less than 70 minutes.
69. That's pretty much all I can really say about Pinku films, not being an expert and not being, massively keen to dive into, because it's so much stuff. It tags on to like the old Japanese V cinema stuff. There's so much stuff out there that you would need to dive properly into it to be able to say with any authority. But they're usually not very long. I'll say that.
Yeah. Well, diverting you from the anything else on Amazon?
No, not that I can find, man. I mean,
but who can?
No,
and even if you can, it's like when you get around to watching it, you find actually it's not on Prime anymore,
or it's a dodgy pan and scan where some mad person is uploading.
Weird ratio, yeah.
Which we can't think why they've done it, but anyway, Netflix, couple things at least. I mean, there's another Young Sang-ho. Our old friend, another one of his series is on there. It's 2020 series, so it is a slightly older one. And it's not really created so much stir as stuff like Hellbound and everything. I mean, he only wrote it, but it seems like a kind of wacky plot about a reporter who's investigating.
And this one is called
The Cursed. Sorry,
The
Cursed.
Yeah.
He's investigating like an evil IT company with some psychic girl or something. And the trailer's okay, but there's nothing about it which grabs me.
And again, I'm not an expert on what they did, but there is a film version of this, which I think is a continuation. But
this is
it's a bit confusing.
It gets very confusing because there's about 3 or 4 films, and when I was talking to my pal Cub over in Hong Kong and stuff, he was feeding me the titles which were translated from obviously Korean to Hong Kong to English and stuff, and they're all pretty much the same. Cursed. There's another Cursed Investigate. There's so many of these ones which have very, very similar titles, and when you throw Hellbound into the mix, Hell and everything like that, it's just. So I don't know, but this one seems more on the sort of slightly wacky side, the sort of K comedy drama with a bit of floppy hair bouncing around and stuff. But if I'm bored, I might check it out. But I'm not going to stand by it. One of the bigger films, I guess, which is The Pirates, The Last Royal Treasure. I mean, you remember The Pirates.
I do, and I do remember, apart from coming back to CG, I thought the CG kind of held it back a bit. But
that's actually, right. The giant whale, right?
Yeah, it was, and some other bits. But actually, it was. I remember enjoying it.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it was fun. But this film is a bit weird. It's not a sequel.
Spiritual sequel.
Isn't that kind of basically the same plot again?
It looks like exactly the same plot. A bunch of miscreants are traveling around looking for a missing treasure, royal treasure, and running into trouble with the authorities, but not really being very bad. not full on pirates or anything. So it looks okay. Apparently, it was actually. It's a lot of the ones which we're seeing on Netflix were supposed to be released in cinemas in Korea, then got sold to Netflix because of COVID and stuff. But this actually did get released. I think it was shot in IMAX and it was released there, so it actually did very well in Korea and stuff. So it might be more worth checking out. Trailers. If you showed me the trailer of the two of them back to back, I probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference, but it looks okay-ish. It's over 2 hours, so I probably won't watch it. Because I'm old.
If only everything was pinky length.
Well, actually, that's true. I could probably fit in a lot more films a night. But last one, Yaksha Ruthless Operations, which has got Seo Kyung-go from the Public Enemy films in it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was actually shot in China, but it's set in Shenyang in mainland China. It's another like espionage one where what they refer to as black spies or things like, which I'm guessing doesn't mean ethnically
black
black.
ops, I suppose. Is what
I'm guessing it's not a perfect English because Netflix are not always very good with their descriptions, to be fair. So and it just seems like sort of
even before you get any differences in language in there.
No. I think it's too much effort sometimes. But it's another sort of spy espionage one and everything. But it looks like everyone has pretty colourful costumes, which puts me off it. Well, it's you get a spy thing as a spy thing. Even we get something super stylish like old cliff walkers and stuff like that.
Which is a period piece, I mean that's
it's
one
a period
thing,
piece, but I mean. I don't know. I mean, just seeing a trailer and everyone's wearing like wacky like costumes and stuff, and just puts me right off it. When it's being described as an espionage thriller, and maybe it's not really an espionage thriller, so I'm not massively selling this because it doesn't look great to me. I've got to say, and again, it's over 2 hours.
Surprise!
There you go, man.
Come on,
that's all.
They need to be much snappier with these films.
They do. They should be. I mean, especially on. I honestly, I think. This is something in which streaming stuff is lagging a bit behind. I think maybe this is still like maybe the final batch of films we were being shot for cinemas and put out online and stuff. But I mean, as we know, online veers towards TV or slightly shorter films. So
either that or it's a whole mini-series.
Yeah, exactly. Like a mini-series or TV series or a shorter film, like a 2 hour 20 film could be like a 3 episode limited series.
Yeah,
and I'd prefer that for sure. So. Oh. There you go. Very slim pickings, man. And that's it.
Is it for now. Don't forget you can find all of our previous episodes on Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and you'll never miss an episode. But for now, cheers!
Yeah, just do it.